Hi, this is Jeffrey Kurt Financial Group, and today is Wednesday, September 18, 2024, and it's the Fed interest rate decision day. I have to admit, last night, kind of reading some things, so if you're reading anything on the markets, it involves what the Fed's going to do today in that whole decision. And to me, it's like, wait a minute, is this the first cut? I had to remind myself that this is the first cut of this cycle since the cycle of raising rates, started back in 2021. And it just points to all of the anticipation and focus on the Federal Reserve's, interest rate policy. This started earlier in the year. It's just crazy that, there's been so much focus. Every speech, every statement, every economic report is all scrutinized with the thought of interest rate cuts. And it's just, it's amazing how much that there's been the anticipation and begging for interest rate cuts. Now, as it pertains to what's going on today, it's interesting also that there's a pretty wide divide over whether this is going to be 25 basis points or 50 basis points. Usually there is a consensus that, okay, here it is. And the Fed, gives you the guidance and kind of leaks the information to certain people. And so there's usually an agreement. This is what's going to happen today. Today is not the case. And I think that sets up for someone to be, not positioned correctly, which could lead to some pretty big volatility after the announcement. And so, I think that, again, that's pretty interesting and pretty, I think, risky that, that the market reacts poorly to whatever the announcement is. The last time, there's only been two times, let me put it this way. There's only been two times that the Fed began reducing interest rates, that cycle, with a 50 basis point cut. One of them was after the dot-com bubble, and one of them was within the mortgage crisis of 2008, 2009, when they started cutting rates then. They began with 50 basis points. It's never cut 50 basis points under conditions like this, where the economy is doing okay, and things are kind of kind of calm. So it'd be interesting to see if they do 50 basis points, given the backdrop of where the economy is and the markets are right now. Also, I want to tell you, there is already priced in 1 full percentage of rate cuts before the end of the year. So it's 100 basis points of cuts before the end of 2024. There's a meeting today. There's a meeting in November, right after the election, and there's a meeting in December. So one of those meetings is going to be 50 basis points. So we'll see how that plays out. And, it's assuming that things play out the way that they are, and you're going to get the interest rate, cuts that the market's already anticipating. And so I think, that's important to keep in mind if we only get 25 basis points today. And certainly the narrative is going to shift to 50 basis points in November, I would expect. I'll leave you finish up with one thing, and I think this is important. The option data, dealer flow, dealer gamma setup currently is very similar to what happened at the end of July, beginning of August. And, if it plays out, as a reminder, at the end of July and beginning of August, we had like an 8.8% drop in the stock market in like 3 days. A big plunge, based on it was the carry trade in Japan, the yen carry trade, and some other disappointing news on earnings and like that ended up sparking that. And, from what I'm seeing, there's a similar setup. That's not to say we're going to go through that kind of volatility again and a big drop in stock prices and like that. But there are some similarities in terms of dealer positioning, option positioning, and like that. And finally, Options expiration on this Friday is a huge number, and it's one of the quad witchings, which is 4 times a year, where you have options, index options, futures, and futures options, and like that. And this can be a very volatile time too. So I might be back tomorrow, depending what the news is, and if there's something worthy to comment on. Otherwise, we'll be back on Friday. Thank you for listening. It's been a long one, but hopefully it's helpful. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you then. Goodbye.